Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Emily Springer. I am a graduate learning specialist in the Graduate Studies Support Center. And thank you for joining us today in our Skill Up series. Today, we have one of our very own faculty members, Dr. Michelle Marvel from our Sanford College of Education, joining us to discuss finding your motivation, a key to achievement. As always, we are recording our session and we will post it in our Skill Up session on our center's page. And I will also post this in our YouTube channel as well. The chat is available. We do actually want you to participate in the chat, so feel free to have conversation in there. And then I know Dr. Marvel would like to take questions as time permits. So let's go ahead and pop those in the Q&A function of your Zoom. Dr. Marvel, I'm going to go ahead and turn this right on over to you, and we're looking forward to it.
What do video games have to do with motivation and achievement? And how can you focus the power of your brain to help you stay motivated to achieve your goal of completing your degree at National University? And what specific steps can you take today to work toward your life or your degree and your life goals? Well, these are a few of the questions that we'll seek today or to answer today in this webinar. And I'm Dr. Marvel, and I'm an associate professor in the Department of Advanced Graduate Studies in the Sanford College of Education. And I've been in online higher education since 2008, and I have a PhD in psychology with a specialization in educational psychology, as well as a background in counseling. So my research interests are motivation, personality, online learning, and technology like virtual reality, augmented reality, and video games. And I help students from all over the world work on their doctoral dissertations. And we have some really cool and interesting doctoral dissertations that are happening in the Department of Advanced Graduate Studies. These projects have the potential for far-reaching effects for learning across the globe. For instance, we've got some students that are working on improving education in war-torn countries, and some students that are exploring the use of augmented reality to teach computer learning to remote learners, or computer technology to remote learners. So I invite you to take a look at some of the interesting studies that are available through the University Library under Access NU Dissertations in ProQuest, and a librarian can help you if you need help finding those. So first, I'm going to ask if you have any video game players here. And you're welcome to use the chat again if you'd like to. I'm not sure if I can see that at the moment, or you can raise your hand. And I'll try to follow that if I can. If not, we should have a few minutes at the end for discussion. I see Steven's got his hand up.
Yeah, I think I see a few people raise their hand.
Okay.
And I will alert you if anything pops up in the chat.
All right. So my interest in video games and motivation stems way back to when I was an undergrad and I was studying psychology, and I had a really big term paper that was due, and one of the Sims games was released that same weekend, and I wound up writing an entire term paper on the Sims games and how they corresponded to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I don't know if you're familiar with those games, but fast forward several years, and I went on to study personality, motivation, and time spent participating in massive online games like World of Warcraft, Second Life, etc. in 2012. And in 2017, I published an article about these findings and their implications for online learning. So I looked specifically at the motivational player types that were identified by Yi in 2007, in which most people usually fall into one primary type of player motivational category. The three categories were achievement, immersion, and socialization. And so I found those who were achievement motivated spent the most time participating in online games, more than those who were motivated to socialize or to just be immersed in the online platform. However, most game players were motivated to play socially. And that was kind of interesting to me, because I think that most students would like to participate in the online learning platforms because they're really motivated to achieve their degree rather than to socialize. However, that would probably need some further study. So TULIAL 2015 actually did apply Bartle's player types, which were the foundation of Yi's 2000 motivational categories, to online learning discussions. So there has been some work in applying this game research to online learning. And I did find that introverts spent more time, about 23.7 hours a week, engaged in online games than extroverts, who spent about 17 hours a week. So there was about a 6.7-hour difference. Now, this was interesting to me because I was looking at the games and then wondering how to take that information and apply that to the online learning platforms for higher education. And when you think about online learning for graduate school, we always recommend that students spend about 15 to 20 hours per week planning that for studying. So this is very similar to the amount of time that is being spent for online games. Now, in my study, over 80% of the participants in the study also said that they were introverts, not extroverts. So that's also interesting to me because I was thinking, well, where are the extroverts? Are they out, doing some kind of face-to-face interaction as opposed to playing online games? Now, I don't really have the answer to that, but out of 406 completed surveys, the majority of the participants were introverts. So that was interesting. As it pertains to online learning, Whiting 2022 found that extroverts had greater difficulty than introverts adapting to the switch to online learning that came with the COVID-19 pandemic. So we've definitely seen changes in online learning and remote work since COVID-19, right? And the findings from Whiting 2022 make sense because extroverts often really excel in face-to-face interaction with people, while introverts excel with quiet time for reading and writing and composing responses that you tend to see with online learning. So both really excel in their own areas and their own styles, but have a little bit more difficulty in different formats. So what does all this about introversion and extroversion and video games and motivation research mean for your work on your degree or working on other goals? Well, research can be really interesting, and I read research all day long. That's really what I do in the Department of Advanced Graduate Studies. But how does that apply to obtaining your degree, or what about your other life goals? Well, as you work on your degree or any other life goal that you choose, you may find it helpful to think through what it is that motivates you, or how does that affect your plan for learning or approaching the goal, and how does that affect your personality? How does it fit with the personality? For instance, would you consider yourself to be more introverted or extroverted, and how might that affect your learning? Well, there are all sorts of assessment tools that you can find to help you determine if you are an introvert or an extrovert if you're not sure. However, this is the simple definition that was used for self-reporting in my study, and it came from Wright 2004. And you can see that here. Let me just move my screen a little bit. But an extrovert is really someone who is energized by social activity. They know a lot of people. The telephones or calls are just welcome interruptions. So they're just calling everybody when something happens. That's an extroverted person. And social events really just recharge them. An introvert is someone who is really reserved. They like solitude, just one or two people, close friends usually. And they really recharge by time alone. If they have to attend an event, then they're really ready for a nap a lot of times. That's usually an introverted person. And again, both types have their strengths, and they really can excel in their own areas. So figuring out which type that you are can help you to plan your study time. So your degree is a major project, and writing a thesis or a dissertation, if that's going to be part of your program, that's also a major project. And all of these things are going to require you to plan your study time and study well. And if you know what motivates you and how to build your time to best suit you, then you can set yourself up for success. And so I've worked with many introverted students over the years who absolutely excel in online learning platforms because they really enjoy the quiet time and the opportunity to work by themselves and to really write and reflect on their responses. And I know extroverted students who have enrolled in online learning platforms, but then they felt like nobody was there, even though their professors are there and their peers are there, but they felt like they were just kind of learning by themselves. And so that becomes something that can really affect motivation. But if you're aware of it ahead of time, then you can really plan accordingly. So if you're taking an online course and you're an introvert, then you may be in your element. And setting aside quiet time to immerse yourself in the course content and work through the course videos and the readings and the resources and planning your study time is likely going to be very helpful. But if you're an extrovert, then finding the commons where you can network with your peers and form some study groups, and identifying your support resources through the university, and planning some study time at the local coffee shop where you can engage with other people and chat with others, maybe some great strategies to help keep you motivated. And these are likely good strategies for everyone, but they're probably going to be especially helpful for the extrovert.
Dr. Marvel.
Yes.
On this point, it's so great. I just was hoping I could pop in this question. Such a great question, because as you're talking about extroverts and introverts, can you be both? Like, is there a sliding scale?
Most people are usually primarily one type or the other, but I think that and you can really look at, there's a lot of research on introversion and extroversion. When doing my study, I went back to Einstein's theory, which is a very old theory actually. But you can really go into a lot of detailed research on that. Most people are usually primarily one or the other, but an introvert can actually really can engage in social activity, but find that they tend to wear out very quickly, whereas an extrovert finds that they tend to become more depressed in things if they don't have that social interaction much more quickly. So that's really a major difference there, is that whereas an introvert doesn't really seem to have that so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Miller.
Yes. So shifting over to game-based learning. Game-based learning uses game theory and strategies to teach educational concepts. Virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality are gaining ground in the field of education and in occupations. So LS 2022 reports that 41% of workers want to see more gamification of learning, and 47% of workers want to see training being delivered through virtual reality instead of through traditional learning platforms. And I think we're going to see a lot more technology like virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality being added to workplaces and learning environments. And universities are looking at game elements and learning for the future. And I can tell you that we have some exciting game learning elements that are going on here at National University. For instance, there was a press release in April about NU's pioneering virtual reality campus. And Dr. Gloria McNeil has already done some wonderful work on the virtual reality and nursing program. So I have included the articles about NU's VR campus and Dr. McNeil's work in the references. These are some really exciting initiatives about educational technology and learning. So I wanted to mention them here, and you can read more about them if you would like to. And again, those articles are in the references. Now, as far as work on your own motivation and degree, gamification is the concept of applying game theory and techniques to everyday life and tasks. And Al-Mashedi al. 2017 developed a game approach for patients with chronic illness to help manage their health. In short, you can take any daily task or learning activity and turn it into a game, even doing the dishes or the laundry, and certainly studying and completing assignments. So let's take a brief look at the brain, and then we'll talk a little bit about gamified learning. So we'll talk about the brain and the body first. So you've probably heard about circadian rhythms, which are the body's natural sleep-wake cycle, and that occurs throughout the day. But ultradian rhythms were identified in the 1950s by sleep researcher Nathaniel Kleitman. Now, Kleitman also discovered rapid eye movement, which you probably heard about that, for REM sleep, and also the basic rest activity cycle, or BRAC cycle, which is present when people are awake. And these daily ultradian BRAC cycles that occur during wakefulness are also believed to be controlled by potassium and sodium in the brain. So you don't really need to remember all of that. The important thing that you need to know as it pertains to motivation and goals is that the cycles flow in periods of 90 minutes of higher brain activity, followed by about 20 minutes of lower brain activity. So when you're concentrating really hard on something, you can maintain that concentration for about a maximum of 90 minutes, and then your brain needs a break. Fatigue and difficulties concentrating sets in because then the brain starts to slow down in order to conserve the precious fuel and resources. And that's kind of why I'm a firm believer that meetings, presentations, and studying and concentration on major tasks probably shouldn't extend beyond about 90 minutes, because your brain just kind of tunes out at that point. And I made a chart here for you to represent those 90 and 20-minute cycles of concentration. So going back to video games, they are relatively low risk and high reward if you think about it. As someone, you can load into a video game and you can play your video game through your phone, console, or PC. And through the games, you complete tasks or levels that earn some kind of nearly instant reward, and then it's complete. And think of some examples here of games. Mario Kart, Tetris, Pac-Man, Animal Crossing, there's a lot of games. Most games have some kind of incentive for completing a task of some kind in the game. And in most games, if the player does not complete the task or the level, they just try again. Earning a college degree is something that most seek to do in order to improve career opportunities, knowledge or expertise in a field, and to build a better future for yourself or your family. Thus, there's a potential for very high rewards with earning a degree, but it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and dedication. So when you submit an assignment for review in a college course, you have to make sure that you're doing your best on it. So much of the research surrounding video games has focused on video game addiction. However, there are many positive studies about the potential for video games to enhance skills like cognition, reflexes, and for games to be used in the treatment of disorders like PTSD. For example, in their study titled Trauma, Treatment, and Tetris, Butler et al. 2020 found that playing Tetris increased the volume of the hippocampus in the brain, and that PTSD, depression, and anxiety symptoms were reduced among the Tetris playing group of participants. So I thought that was kind of interesting. With video games, the brain also releases dopamine because of the lights and the sounds and the sense of achievement received among completing the tasks, upon completing the task and achieving the goals. So dopamine release also occurs when goals are accomplished outside of playing video games too. And this is one of the reasons why many CEOs and business professionals make to-do lists and use productivity trackers, because there's a sense of accomplishment and dopamine release upon seeing progress toward a goal. So one way to gamify your learning or goals is to create your own progress bars for your own tasks by breaking them into smaller tasks for each day and making sure that you just track your progress on each goal as you complete them or each objective. You can even think of each course like a week in each course week like a level in your favorite video game if you want to, and set a small and reasonable reward for yourself for completing each one. Another thing that video games do is they often provide incentives for people to log into them every day through some sort of leaderboard or bonus or event which reinforces the behavior. Nobody wants to miss out on the bonus for participating, so you're motivated to log in. In online learning, the motivation is often to see what your weekly assignment is, to complete the course materials for that assignment, or to do the homework and then to submit that assignment. There are tasks to do, but it's really up to you to hold yourself accountable and to make sure that it gets done. So your motivation comes from wanting to learn the content, complete the assignment, finish the course successfully, and from wanting to earn your degree. That immediate participation bonus reward or incentive that you see in a video game may not be there, but why can't you set one for yourself? So set a calendar, track your own participation, and give yourself a small reward for logging in and participating each day. Here's an example. Let's say I log in daily and do a task for 90 minutes, 5 days a week, and then I give myself a check mark for that each day, and then reward myself for getting 5 check marks for participation that week by ordering takeout for lunch on Friday. That's just one example. Another thing that video games offer is that they often encourage collaboration with peers, which can be very important. Engaging in group sessions through the Academic Success Center or participating in the Commons, where you're going to find groups of peers to collaborate or network with to form study groups, can also be ways to socialize and collaborate with peers. So I have some students who attend the Academic Success Center resources every week and have been repeatedly told, I've been repeatedly told just how helpful they are. And there's nothing to recharge your motivation like learning a new skill. And the Graduate Studies Support Center has several resources and webinars available. And I really cannot speak highly enough of all these wonderful resources that are available to you. If you're a doctoral student and you're planning to write a dissertation, definitely look into attending the dissertation boot camps where you can receive in-person assistance on your dissertation. So skill building is going to be another critical part of working on your degree or any goal that you choose, which is going to require you to gain new skills. So with video games, characters have to level up and gain skills to move forward to accomplish their goals. In education, building writing, thinking, and research skills, it's all part of the process. The resources that are noted here and others are designed to help you build the skills that you're going to need to be successful in your degree program. So be sure to build them into your motivational game plan for your degree and even set attending them as a mini game as well. So you can do the same thing with reading or attending workshops or with learning any new skill. So let's take what we've learned about motivation in the brain and the games and apply that toward building your game plan for achieving your goals. So there's a few steps to take in order to write your game plan for achieving your goals. And this could be any goal that you set for your life, your career, or your degree, any goal. The first key is going to be that you have to get a very clear picture in your mind of what that goal is. You have to know what it is that you want to achieve. So let's begin with a visualization exercise. For this exercise, think about what you would like to achieve. And this can be any goal. But if you're here and you're working toward achieving your degree, then let's imagine that it is your degree. Think about it in great detail as much as you can. You can close your eyes if you want to, but don't do that if you're driving. You can practice this at a later time if you must. The key is to imagine yourself completing that goal in as much detail as possible. Graduation is coming up pretty soon. It's going to be in San Diego, where it should be sunny and warm in June. Imagine you're walking across the stage. Perhaps your family is there, the faculty, the audience. Imagine what that cap and gown feels like. Maybe you've had your hair done. Maybe you bought a new pair of shoes to wear. What does that feel like? It's a big day. Think about the lights and the sounds as they call your name, and you walk up to receive your degree. How do you feel? Hold on to that for a moment. Visualization exercises have been shown to decrease anxiety, depression, and stress levels. The visualization works by directly affecting the autonomic nervous system and telling the body that it needs a corresponding response. So to your brain and to your body, it's like you're actually experiencing that moment in time. This is why it works well for motivation. If you can visualize the goal, then you can see yourself achieving it. With video games, you see the end goal. You know that it is possible to reach the end of that game or to achieve that objective. You just have to gain the necessary skills and get past that level that you're trying to clear to get there. With higher education, it's similar. You gain the necessary skills and demonstrate that through your work on your assignments. Through completing these steps, you are working toward that cap and gown, and you're visualizing yourself receiving your accomplishments, and the end will help you to find your motivation that you need to continue working toward that goal. The next step is to make sure that that goal is clear, specific, and concise. For instance, if your goal was, I graduate with my doctorate in e-learning from National University by June of 2024, write it down. Note that the goal is specific and it has an expected date on it. That is the key. Write it down and carry it with you. Write it down somewhere in a place that it is easily accessible. Tape it to the mirror. Put it in your wallet or handbag. Put it on your desk. Whatever your goal is, make sure that it is somewhere that you can see it every single day. Writing down goals and objectives is a common technique used by entrepreneurs and business professionals to help motivate them for success. The next key is to revisit the goal frequently. The more frequently that you read the goal, the more likely it will be that you're going to take the necessary steps to work toward achieving that goal. The work on achieving that goal does not come from simply writing down the goal and reading it, but what these steps do together is to entrench that goal firmly in your mind and help you stay focused on it. By remaining focused on the goal, you increase your daily motivation to work on it. Revisiting the goal each day helps to maintain that frequent participation, like the video games we were talking about earlier. Remember how I said they usually have some sort of bonus or incentive for checking into the game? Well, there's a motivational incentive for checking in with your goal every day. And if you're being reminded every single day of your goal, then you're more likely to work on it. Many coaches and athletes use goal setting to motivate players. And in their study of sports players, Weinberg et al. 2019 found that the more that participants looked at their goals, the more likely they were to practice their skills in free throwing, dribbling, etc. So be sure to revisit that goal every day. And the next key is to identify the next step that you can take to work toward completing that goal. Think small, reasonable steps that can be completed today. Think about your goal. Where are you now with it? Where would you like to be with it right now? What is the next step that you can do and complete today that would put you closer toward your goal? And here are a few examples. Contact your academic advisor for a program or scholarship opportunity information. Review the Graduate Studies Support Center calendar for upcoming workshops to build necessary skills that you need. Schedule a coaching appointment with the Academic Success Center. Schedule a research consultation with the university library. Review a course reading for the week 2 assignment in your course, so it's specific to a specific assignment. And key 5, take the step that you have identified and complete it today. The sense of accomplishment from completing one task or skill that you receive will help to motivate you toward completing the next task. Just like clearing that level of a video game, once you've completed it, you're likely to be more confident and motivated to move on and try the next. It is good to keep track of the task and progress that you've made in a simple planner or an app, or even just a notepad. It is more important to do the tasks than to get caught up in the tracking of them. I think that any system that works for tracking, that works for you, that you use consistently is fine. I tend to use just a paper planner or legal pad myself, but there's all kinds of apps or trackers that you can use. There's really no right or wrong way to track them. Just whatever you use consistently is fine. Here is a very brief, simple game plan that I have put together. The overall goal is presented here, the same goal that we looked at earlier. And there's a daily motivation to review the daily participation, and either a skill building or a task or a simple check mark and a reward at the end of each. But you could, again, you could structure this any way you wanted to. Set the tasks and rewards that work for you. And these are just some examples. And I just included 5 days here so you could see it on the table a little bit easier. But you could develop neat looking game boards. You could develop cards. You could develop apps, any kind that you wanted to, if you really wanted to get creative and spend some time on it. This is just a very simple method that could be filled into a planner, or again, even just a notepad with pen and paper works fine. And again, I think the most important keys for achieving and maintaining motivation are: 1, visualize the goal that you would like to achieve. And remember, that tells the brain and body that you are achieving that goal. 2, write that goal down. Be as clear and concise as possible. 3, revisit regularly to keep that goal fresh in your mind and build that motivation to complete it. 4, identify a step toward that goal. 5, complete it right away. Completing that step will help you build and maintain that motivation as you work toward your goal. Then repeat that process until you've reached your goal, and be sure to use the resources that are available to you. Remember, those resources are like gathering the skills that a character needs to make it through a level in a video game. The goal is the purpose of playing the video game. The more that you look at your goal and the more that your mind stays focused on it, the more likely you are to practice the skills and take action to achieve it. It is through a series of small steps and actions that add up over time that the larger goals are reached. And through completing each one of these small steps and actions, that's what leads to greater confidence and motivation that you will achieve your goal. So keep revisiting that goal and taking those steps every day. You will get there. And here are the references. And these top 2 right here are the ones about the virtual reality campus and the work that Dr. McNeil has done. And thank you for attending this webinar. And I hope that you have found this information to be helpful. And I wish you the best as you work toward achieving your degree and your goals.
Thank you so much, Dr. Marvel. We do have just a couple of questions.
Okay.
And we may end just a tad bit early today, but one of the questions was about how many breaks should you have in a day? You talked about working for certain periods of times and then scheduling a break. Do you have any research or suggestions for that?
No specific research, but 4 90-minute blocks I find works very well in the break period times with 20 minutes in between. Okay. It's really minimum of 20 minutes, and then there's probably a lot of research actually on that, but 4 90-minute blocks is a very good structure, I think. And then you can add in 4 to 6 actually 90-minute blocks is a good structure to put in. But it really just depends on how you need to break that up throughout your week too.
Okay, great. And then for our participants, we may take just a few questions today. We may end just a tad bit early. But if you do have any questions, feel free to pop them in the Q&A. I do see, Stephen, do you have a question about any motivation that Dr. Marvel covered?
I was wondering if she could go back to the slide that had planned tasks in chunks of time right there, because, oops, I missed the last one.
Oh, nice.
No, one more.
One more?
There.
Oh, this one. Oh, under the reflection. Thank you. Yeah, if you don't mind leaving it up for just a minute, Dr.
No, that's fine. Not in no hurry at all.
Okay, great. And then, Stephen, was there anything else? Questions?
Yeah, when you say write it down and you suggested putting it in your phone or on your legal pad or what have you, is there any evidence that suggests writing it down physically, by hand is better than typing it or texting it to yourself or what have you?
I think it just depends really on your style of learning. I personally think that writing it down for me I tend to be a visual learner, and I'm not very good at checking my phone. So for me, writing it down is good. I like 3x5 note cards myself. That was what works best for me. But if you happen to be a person who uses your phone more frequently, then you may do better with your phone. As far as what the literature says, that you could probably find literature to support either one. You would have to really look at that, and I have not looked at that specifically.
Okay. Thank you so much, Stephen, for that comment and question.
Good question.
Yeah, and I think Dr. Marvel, I think you are correct. I think it's a little bit too about knowing who you are, and I think you touched on that through different, for example, the intrinsic or extrinsic type of personality, and knowing yourself and what works best for you. But I would have to say, I'm going to echo, for me to remember something really well, if I write it down, it's going to be much better than me just typing it.
Yeah, with the different learning styles, some of us are better with writing things down. Some are better with auditory learning. Some it's a combination thereof.
Right.
Some are better with the digital formats. I'm not, and so I have pen and paper is best for me. So it just really depends.
I do want to thank you, Dr. Marvel. I don't see any other questions coming up in the chat or the Q&A at this time. So I'll take this time to thank you and to thank our participants for joining us today. Until the next time, we hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for attending and have a great afternoon.
Bye-bye.